Hey, what's going on, everybody? Max here with BB, and today for 10 minutes, Max, we're going to be talking about what the heck happened on Friday. Has it changed where crypto is potentially headed as we have just entered Q4? And then ultimately, what I see for this cycle. Did this change anything? Is it going to change anything? When are the coins going to recover, or is this the beginning of the end? Let's not waste any time. Let's get right into it, guys, and do me a solid. Hit that like button and also subscribe to the channel if you guys are new here. So, guys, here's the thing. You've probably noticed we don't have much editing on this video. Our main man, Ed, our dev, the man behind the scenes that makes everything beautiful and keeps it running, is actually on kind of a honeymoon. So leave us a comment. Say, congrats, Ed. Hope you had a great time. So we're kind of doing a one take raw video right now. So hopefully you guys are cool with it. Something that I spent a good deal of time talking about the first 3 or 4 days, roughly, of the new quarter, being Q4, being October 1st, was there's this phenomenon called the scam. All right. And this is something that we see time and time again on a daily basis, on a weekly, monthly, quarterly, yearly basis, where the calendar or the clock will sort of roll over into a new session and we get a scam before ultimately picking a direction. Now, we always talk about this on Market Check, our daily show. It's on this YouTube channel. Some of you probably watch it. Some of you are probably like, I have watched it maybe once, or I don't even know what you're talking about. So maybe you've missed it. So for those that have missed it, I will give you a few examples. But we were talking October 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, like every day, almost the first week, about this phenomenon called the scam. And the emphasis that we've put on it being, if you want to truly succeed in these markets, one, you need to know that the scam is coming. And two, you need to become one with the scam, right? And that really can only happen through true unfiltered screen time. Okay. The longer you've been in this market, the longer you've had to kind of process and see what I'm talking about. And I'm going to show you what I'm talking about. So let me preface the scam discussion with the following. Okay. Q4 is seasonally the best time to be invested in risk assets and specifically crypto. All right. Now, I've had some people say to me, Max, Q1 is also seasonally very bullish. January, February, March, typically very bullish. We got screwed this Q1. Yes, seasonality does not always hit, but just because it didn't happen once or twice or three times doesn't mean that you should completely disregard it. It should just be used as another factor to influence your decision making. So Q4, we typically see sort of peak scammery. All right, we typically see peak scammery. Now, these are some examples that we've gone over in detail on Market Check, but for those that don't watch the daily show and just rely on these recorded videos, we're going to kind of roll it back a little bit, and I'm going to show you a few examples of the Q4 scam in bull markets. Okay, I'm going to skip the bear market ones because I mean we're in a bull market, right? Like look at the chart. Like Bitcoin is in a bull market despite the technical correction. We're gonna focus on the ones that are contextually relevant. All right. So let's just start with our current one. Okay. So here is Q4. I've got it labeled on the chart already. Here is Q4 of this year, right? This was the October 1st opening tick. We pumped right off the open, and then we scam dumped through the Q4 open, and now we're kind of chilling back on top of it. Hopefully that's it. We'll talk about that in just a second. But we got the Q4 scam, right? Pump it off the open. It's time. October. Boom. Right? Now let's roll it back a little bit. Let's look at Q4 of last year. All right, let's look at the Q4 open, and I'll point out my favorite one here in just a second. Okay. All right, so this right here is the Q4 open from last year. Okay, so what you can see off this one is we actually did kind of the opposite. We just kind of chilled for about 12 hours. We dumped right off of it and then used that Q4 open pivot as resistance. And once we finally got above it, obviously the rest is history. We had a very bullish Q4. Okay, let's keep it moving. Let's roll it back even further. All right. So that was 2024. So we've got 2025, 2024. Let's go to 2023. Okay. Now this is potentially one of my favorites because the scam was just so in a way it was somewhat similar to what we just saw, okay? Now again, for some of you this may be redundant because I've talked about this. If you're in our Discord, I talked about this October 1st. I was like, I hope it ain't so, but you have to be prepared for the scam, right? Let's look at this one. Similar in nature, right? So Q4 open, that was actually the wick. So Q4 open was right there, right? We pumped right off of it. October is here. We scam flush below the open, right? And then we reclaim it. And obviously, Q4 into Q4 2023 was a ripper, right? We closed, this was like January. So the close was like right up in here, right? So really bullish Q4, right? So you're kind of starting to see the writing on the wall, right? So we've gone over 2023, 2024, 2025, right? Kind of similar every time where you get some price action below that open. The manner in which it occurs is a little different every time, but you get that Q4 rollover, you get some scam, right? And I particularly like this example because of how we pumped right off the open and then scam dumped, and then immediately after scam dumping, just ripped face, right? All right, let's keep it moving. So we're going to skip the bear market, right? Because I'd say the bull market obviously began when we got above this, this pivot point after FTX. So let's go back into last cycle and look at some more Q4 scams, okay? Skipping the bear market into the bull market. Now we're going to look at October 1st right here. Oops. Sorry, hit the wrong button there. All right. Bear with me, no pun intended. All right, here we go. October 1st, Q4 2021, late stage bull market last cycle, okay? We get the open, it's right here. We pump immediately off the open, rip from, 43 and a half to, 69, okay? And then we came way back here in late Q4 and actually scammed below the Q4 open. And obviously that was kind of the end, right? But you can see this time, late stage last cycle, we scammed straight up, left everybody sidelined, no price action below it, and then came back, wrecked everybody late Q4, okay? Let's keep it moving. So again, this was 2021, all right? Now let's look at this one. This is a great one as well. A great Q4 scam, right? You have to become one with the scam. Here is October 1st, okay? But pre-bull market, or I guess like really early stage bull market in 2020, right? So October 1, here's the opening tick. Chilled out, dumped below, acted as resistance, got above, and then you can see that we started an absolute ripper, right? So I feel like these are enough examples, right? So you can see that there's typically some scammery around the Q4 open, and my hope is that that's really what we just got here. And I think the most comparable example, now granted, the magnitude of this one wasn't quite as treacherous, right? But this was a scary dump. I remember this one because this move actually was the announcement of the Bitcoin and Ethereum ETFs. Really, the Bitcoin ETF was going to begin trading soon. Obviously, began actually trading up in here. Okay, but what was scary about this one is you kind of had all this supply overhead, right? So you had like this whole structure acting as resistance. So resistance overhead. You took out that wick. And then on top of that, I actually remember watching this structure right here. We were kind of breaking down from this diagonal. So we pumped off the Q4 open, scammed down below it. We're breaking the diagonal. And I remember seeing a lot of traders. There was a CME gap down in here talking about this level, right? There was a Bitcoin CME gap down in this region. And I remember just being like, oh man, that would really be a bummer to start Q4 this way, coming back down, filling in this inefficiency. Actually, from when USDC was depegging, when all those small regional banks were having issues. I think it was Silicon Valley Bank at the time. But either way, kind of fast forwarding, looking at where we're at right now, guys. This to me feels very similar to previous Q4 scams. Yes, it was a horrible shakeout. Yes, you're probably thinking like, okay, that's great. Bitcoin looks fine, Max, but let's talk about altcoins. We're going to do that, I promise. Um, but I think it's important to remember like we pumped right off the open. We dumped through the Q4 open. We are now technically trying to reclaim it. Where have we seen this before, right? Where have we seen this before? And I won't waste all the time. We're already 10 minutes in, so I don't want this to be like a 3 hour max video. It's going to be a 10-minute max video. We're gonna probably 3 or 4x, the allotted time of 10 minutes in typical fashion. But I think it's important to remember this, right? Bitcoin is kind of doing what Bitcoin typically does around that Q4 rollover, okay? So pretty similar. Now, what the heck happened on Friday, guys? What the heck happened? Now, I've got my theories. I've got my tinfoil hat for sure. I'm gonna just I don't know how deep I'm gonna get into it, right? I don't know how much merit there really is and like how helpful it is to even really nitpick it. But I will say this: that was not a typical liquidation event. Okay. I believe that the event that we saw on Friday afternoon, where there were some altcoins that went down to literally zero, which we'll talk about that one in particular. Most altcoins, large cap altcoins, centralized exchange listed, tier one exchange listed altcoins, flash dumped about 70 to 99% down in a matter of like 30 minutes or less. Okay. Even if you were trading on 2x leverage, you got carted out. Now, let me preface with this. I was completely unaffected by that dump. I am like 95% spot. I've got about 5% of my holdings or less that I have my bots run for me 24/7. The bots got short, okay? The shorts did very well. Now, it's not a huge part of my portfolio, but they run for me 24/7. I'm an individual who was completely unaffected besides some very, small short-term spot pullback, unrealized drawdown, I guess we could call it. So when I say this, I'm not speaking with any bias. I have no anger about it personally. Like I'm a neutral third party here. I believe that the event that we saw on Friday was the single greatest coordinated, manipulated event that you may ever see for your entire tenure in crypto. Okay. What happened on Friday shouldn't have been able to happen. Okay. I believe there were bad actors. I believe there were entities, maybe multiple, that got completely carted out. And I think we're going to have to wait and see if any, bodies kind of float to the surface here. Um, but I think that was the single greatest predatory scam that I've ever seen. And I watched this. I've watched this market every hour of every day for about 5 or 6 years now. I've seen some flushes. I have never seen anything like that. Now let's dive in and actually talk about some altcoins here. Okay, we talked about the Q4 scam. Bitcoin structurally looking fine. ETH structurally looking fine. That's the most important thing. If you survive the scam on Friday and you are heavy spot, there's a very good chance that your portfolio is going to recover reflexively very quickly. Okay. And again, we will get into all of that. Okay. Now, I want to go over one chart in particular. Okay. Adam went to zero. Okay. Now, some of you will joke and say, well, Adam should be at zero anyways. Okay. You know what? I don't necessarily disagree. Whatever. Doesn't matter. We can poke fun at it. This chart went to zero, literally zero on Binance, okay? But I want to show you something sort of interesting here, okay? So let's just pull up like Coinbase, okay? So this is Adam on Coinbase, okay? Let's see here. Okay, great, good. Okay, here is Adam on Coinbase. Adam went down to 287 on Coinbase. Okay. Now I'm going to pull up Bybit. We're just going to do just a few examples. We're just going to have some fun with it, guys. We're just going to have some fun. I'm definitely not trying to paint any type of picture or anything like that. I would never do that. Now let's take a look at where it went to on Binance. Okay, went to about $1.55 on Bybit. Excuse me, Bybit. Okay. Bybit, we'll just make it orange. Okay. So on Coinbase, I'll put a price label up there so you guys can see it. Coinbase went to 287. Bybit went to 155. And I'm going to pull up the Atom Binance chart. Okay. And we will look at it a little closer. All right. Let me add a line here. Okay. And let me add a price label. And we will change it to, it's really hard to see. We'll change it to gold. And we'll put the exchange label on here. Okay. So let me preface, I'm certainly not trying to insinuate anything or point the finger at anybody. I'm just here merely observing things that I find to be strange about this dump that happened on Friday afternoon as the New York session closed. Okay, let's take a look at Atom. Coinbase went down to 287. Bybit went down to 155. And Binance went to 0. Binance is the largest crypto exchange in the world. It consistently does the most volume out of every other exchange by quite a bit. Now, in terms of Atom volume, I don't know what the breakdown of Atom volume is by exchange. But I do know that in general, Binance does the most volume by a lot, okay, for any given ticker, typically. But maybe I'm off on Atom. So I find it to be very interesting that, Coinbase went to 287, Bybit went to 155, and Binance went to 0. I find that to be very interesting, right? I certainly find that to be very interesting, and I just wanted to point that out to you guys. Now, there's something else here that I think would make sense to talk about. There was something going on, for the past 2 months, and to be fair, it's been a very fractured market, but BNB has been dramatically outperforming the rest of the market. And you could say to me, Max, you already just said it. It's a fractured market. It's like one coin pumps, everything else does nothing for a while. And you're right. It's been that way for like 2 years now, where like a coin or a couple coins will catch a bid and nothing else really will. Now, what I want to do is I want to just pull up BNB here. Okay, we're going to do a little bit of BNB analysis. So let's pull up BNB. So here's BNB, right? BNB has been ripping while the rest of the market has been kind of doing nothing. Okay. So let me just to clear this up. Let's actually do this. We'll pull back up Atom right here. Okay. And we'll put BNB down below. Okay. So as you can see here, BNB has basically recovered the entirety of that dump. Okay. It did dump with everything, but it actually went on to make a new all-time high reflexively after that dump. Now, what I want to also do here is I want to talk about BNB divided by total, right, to highlight its relative outperformance. Okay. Let's move that to a new pane below. Put that in candles and regular. So you see the BNB chart. I'm going to remove it in just 1 second, okay? So this chart down here is BNB total, okay? BNB total. So what this chart simply means is when the chart is moving down like this, that means that BNB is bleeding against the crypto asset class. When it's moving up, it means that BNB is actually outperforming everything in crypto. Interesting, right? It's been on quite a run recently. Now, it really started outperforming, we'll just say like right here. Okay, like I wouldn't really count this as the beginning of the trend, kind of was like chopping, nuking, then like recovered. This is when it started trending, basically like August 11th, okay? Basically August 11th. Now, this is something that has happened, it's not just an Atom thing. I just wanted to point out Atom, and then we're going to get into some more specific tickers, things that are maybe more relevant, things that we talk about on this channel. BNB has been outperforming everything in crypto. It's been a very isolated rally. This is BNB total. It starts ripping. So BNB ripping. everything else kind of chopping, slow bleeding, doing nothing. And then multiple tickers on BNB on Binance specifically nuked way lower than other exchanges and specifically from their on-chain prices. And I will talk about that in just a second too. Now, at that same exact time, there's been a lot of chatter about this ticker, Aster. Let's just pull it up on Mexi. It actually launched on chain before this, so there is more price history that kind of goes back to, like, maybe when the outperformance actually began, right? It's potentially, actually, let me just pull up the on-chain chart here on a separate 26 days ago. So that would be from here, launched 26 days ago. Okay, so that's pretty close, right? So pretty close. So Aster has very close ties to Binance CZ. He's been tweeting about it a lot. It's a competitor to Hyperliquid, which has been, basically stealing business from all these large centralized exchanges. So I just don't really think it's a complete coincidence that, BNB and Aster have been garnering so much market share recently, and then we see the largest liquidation event for altcoins in the history of crypto, literally ever, with wicks that went even up to 50 to 80% deeper than some other exchanges and on-chain pricing. I just find it to be very strange. Personally, I find it to be very, very strange that, of course, BNB was ripping and Aster was ripping, and both held up and recovered much better than most other coins, right as we see the worst liquidation cascade literally ever. So you kind of have to ask yourself, like, I wonder what was maybe going on there. I don't know. I would love for you to tell me. But in regards to the on-chain pricing, let's get a little bit more specific, right? Let's talk about Pepe, okay? So this is a very interesting example as well. Obviously, Pepe has been trading on Binance since over here, May of 2023. Most of the volume now occurs for something like Pepe on Binance. And you can actually see here that from this candle, from the Friday candle, Pepe actually went down 70% in a day, right? 70% in a day. Let me narrow this in a little bit here. So Pepe went down 70% in a day, right? Now, let's look at another chart here, okay? This is the Pepe on-chain chart, okay? This is the Pepe on-chain chart, meaning like you buy this thing on, Uniswap. This is the V2 pool specifically, okay? You can see that all that Pepe did that day, yeah, it did dump, right? But it basically just went down to its higher time frame range low. I've got this line that I drew out earlier here. The Binance wick went here. For those that don't believe me or don't remember, let's just pull back up the Binance chart. Okay. Let's adjust our y-axis so that we can put it in log mode so we can see it. There we go. And let's put the candles on here. Now, you can see very clearly here that the Binance wick went to 0.0000 whatever 282 or 2768. I had it marked out earlier right here. So from the on-chain chart to the Binance chart, which is the one below, from the wick on the on-chain chart to the wick of the Binance chart, Binance's Pepe price went down 50% more than what on-chain Pepe was being priced at. And then furthermore, during that dump, Binance, you couldn't even trade on it. I've never been able to trade on Binance. I live in the US, but I was hearing online people were trying to manage their positions or even take advantage of the cheap prices on something like Pepe or maybe Atom. Who knows? There's dozens of other tickers that went through the exact same thing, but you couldn't trade, right? So all you could do was get liquidated. If you had any leverage on the board, all you could do was get liquidated. So I just find the whole thing to be very confusing. And I say to myself, well, BNB's been ripping. Aster has been trying to compete with Hyperliquid, doing everything they possibly can. This is an exchange that also, carted out another exchange back in late 2022. We don't need to get into the specifics, FTX. Let's not pretend like that didn't happen. And I don't want to get all tinfoil hatty, but I just say, like, who's doing all right now? Who's been doing all right? And at everything else's expense. I mean, this was the single greatest scam event that I've ever seen where, I mean, people were completely taken out of positions and removed in a predatory manner from their money. And I do not believe it was organic. I do not believe that people were on there selling enough Pepe or Atom to send Atom to zero and to send Pepe down 50% lower than its relative on chain valuation. I believe that people were manufactured, there were conditions that were manufactured to remove people from their money. They didn't remove me from my money. I hold spot. But I can't reconcile a difference between price like this. When you have the largest exchange in the world doing the most volume out of any exchange, more than on chain volume, every other centralized exchange, having a wick for Pepe that goes down 50% lower than on chain pricing. And then we talked about Atom earlier. Sending Atom down to zero when on Coinbase it went to 287 and Bybit about a buck 55. And you've got, 30 days prior than that, you've had BNB going on a generational run and Aster launching. And I just wonder if this was another attempt to take out a competitor in some way and things got really twisted and backwards. I don't know. But all I know is that something is not right. That shouldn't have been able to happen. And if you were affected by it, I am sorry. You were victim to the scam because this was a scam. This is nearly impossible to reconcile. Yes, maybe people were using too much leverage. Yes, maybe we deserved a flush anyways. Yes, maybe a Q4, flush to take out, the opening price was supposed to happen anyways. Yes, yes, yes. But should Pepe have gone down 70% in less than an hour? Should Atom have gone to zero on the world's largest exchange? Should dozens of other tickers suffer the same fate? Should people have lost everything? I don't know. I don't think so. It's difficult for me to reconcile. So, enough dwelling on that, like what does it mean for the rest of the cycle? Well, to kind of get into it, it doesn't mean anything for me. Like this was a complete scam. When I look at the chart here, I say, well, if Bitcoin and ETH can recover, your alts are going to probably spring to new highs after everybody got completely carted out. If you survive this, congrats. You're probably going to end up making it after this. Markets work very reflexively. They scam dump down too hard. They scam pump up way higher than they should. That's just kind of how markets work. It's like a bouncy ball. But it is very difficult to reconcile what happened with altcoins because I think it was I don't think it was truly organic. And I think we're going to figure that out eventually. I do. And I think if this happened in any other market in the entire world, there would be months, if not years, of congressional hearings. But because it's crypto, we just say, well, just another flush in the Wild West. But I don't think that that's what this was. I've been in these markets for a long time. I do not think that that's what this was. Now let's look at some let's look at some altcoin charts here, okay? Let's look at let's look at total 3 ES Bitcoin, okay? So this chart right here is total 3, or just like total market cap excluding Bitcoin and ETH and stable coins relative to Bitcoin. So if this chart moves up, that means it's alt season. If it moves down, it means it's Bitcoin season. How does the chart look right now? It looks exactly the same. It looks like you just scam wick below your range low, and we're pending some giant breakout probably in Q4. Nothing looks different to me here at all. Like it's almost like it didn't even happen. And more proof of that too is like, let me take the wicks off the chart. If I take all the wicks off the chart, It's like it didn't even happen because it was such a quick flash dump, right? So nothing that I've talked about in previous videos has changed after the event that we saw on Friday. Nothing, literally zero. The exact same thing. Exact same thing. Just a flash wick, went way deeper than it should have. And we've got a breakout brewing here. This is a giant multi-year, multi-cycle compression. Now let's look at total 3 ES ETH. This chart is still holding up just fine, right? So this is total 3 paired against ETH, right? So when this chart's moving up, it's ETH season. When it's moving down, or I'm sorry, when this chart's moving up, it's alts, small cap alts outperforming ETH. When it's moving down, it's the opposite. ETH is outperforming your small cap alts. Despite this wick, it doesn't really matter. It's the exact same chart, right? This was just a scam dump, flash dump, went way lower than it should have. And, we basically recovered the entirety of it. It's like it didn't even happen. Like this dump here, everybody got removed from their money, and we're still holding support. And this is most likely going to be marking a high time frame bottom, a wick in which we do not visit. Maybe ever. We'll see maybe next bear market, but I don't think we're going to get below that wick. I think it's going to be maybe a slow bleed to backfill it a little bit. And then you'll probably see in Q4 into Q1, you'll see this chart move higher, which will be small cap alts, outperforming that of Ethereum. Let's look at ETH BTC. ETH BTC still looks totally fine. Obviously, Bitcoin and ETH were the most insulated from this drop. And this is kind of a perfect technical backfill, right? This was a giant inefficiency right here. And we came back perfectly to fill it in. Let's throw on some volume, right? You can see that there was an inefficiency in the chart. See this void right here? See this thing? See that? All that is just an absence of volume, right? And then you can see that, we built this little spike. This was not here before the dump, okay? All that occurred from down in here, big sell volume. So I think when this chart reaches this trend line, hopefully breaks higher, we know that when ETH BTC moves higher, it typically means that altcoins move higher as well. It's typically a really solid risk-on barometer. So all of this is to say something really strange and suspicious happened. I don't really know exactly what it was. I'm certainly not pointing the finger at anybody. And I think that things look completely fine, right? As long as majors remain strong, you will see your altcoins recover just as quickly as they dumped. And if Bitcoin and ETH can start rallying back up and stay above their Q4 opens, and Bitcoin from here, this is just an overblown flush for the open, starts rallying up here, back into the 119, 120, even goes to new highs. Well, guess what? Your alts, it's probably the beginning of alt season. And typically what marks the very beginning of an alt season is an egregious flush like what we just had. Not quite to the magnitude, but typically the biggest pumps are preceded by the biggest dumps for altcoins because they're reflexive. That's just how it works. So anyways, I know we maybe got a little sidetracked today. We're already on the 33-minute mark, so I'll leave you with this again. I think that everything looks fine. I think you watch Bitcoin closely. I think you would be well served to place, your Q4 open on the chart and just watch this pivot point, okay? Watch this pivot point. It's right here. Okay, watch this pivot point. If Bitcoin can stay above its Q4 open and keep moving up, you're most likely going to see altcoins recover very aggressively. Okay, now something you need to keep an eye out for is you still have a monster wick down here. And typically, not all the time, typically it will take a few weeks to really resolve a flush like this. But given the time in which it happened, being it happened so quickly, and it also happened on Friday after the New York Stock Exchange was closed, maybe we don't need to actually go back down there and diddle around for too long. So anyways, guys, thanks for tuning in. Just wanted to get some thoughts out there. Everything is still perfectly on track. watch that Q4 open. This is potentially just the same kind of Q4 scam that we saw, in 2020, 2024, 2023 is one of my favorite examples, and hopefully up from here. But guys, thanks for tuning in. We will see you next time. Take care.